Good morning. Welcome to Talking Pop Culture with Jake D. Thank you for joining me this morning. We are talking about episode 7, Butcher, Baker, Candlestick Maker of The Boys, season 2. And I'll tell you what, we have been waiting. We've been waiting for quite a while now to find out whether or not there's going to be the wokeness starting here. And we did finally get it. It's something I've been anticipating since we saw the Kripke interview prior to the launch of season 2. And just to remind everybody specifically about what we've got going on here, just, take a listen to this.
It's a great question. We were really interested in exploring the idea of authority figures get the public really riled up with xenophobia and racism. Ultimately, the most dangerous people are like the white dudes standing next to you.
Yeah. So this is something that I've been worried about for quite a while on this season of The Boys. We've got, we finally get to see truly what Kripke was talking about when he gave this interview. So this episode, Butcher, Baker, Candlestick Maker, was, to me, it's kind of a tale of two different episodes. Like the first half of it is really significantly exemplifying this just extreme position that Kripke takes in this interview. The episode opens up with your average, I guess I would say internet guy, right? And something, if you've been listening to Gary from Nerdrotic talk about season 2 of The Boys, one of the things that he's been emphasizing, and I agree with him, is that Stormfront and her army that she talks about earlier in the season are representative of us, representative of me, representative of you, Red Shirt, representative of the fandom menace type community out there on the internet. She's been sort of the emblematic leader of how Hollywood sees us. And we finally got the beating it over your head example of that in episode 7 that released yesterday. The episode opens up with your average mom's basement internet guy getting influenced by Stormfront's meme army and her videos and her anti, what have you. When Kripke talked about xenophobia and the dangerous white guy next to you, he meant the first 5 minutes of this episode. And it really, really bothered me because it suggested rather directly, and in the same way that Doctor Who beat us over the head with agenda, in the same way that Star Trek and Star Wars have been beating us over the head with agenda, this was absolutely, unquestionably, Kripke beating us over the head with his agenda of the white guy standing next to you being the most dangerous guy. They've got this unnamed, nondescript guy who gets radicalized by Stormfront's meme army and ultimately ends up shooting the convenience store owner in the head that he visits and patronizes frequently, because somehow memes convinced this dude that, the guy that he patronizes, on a nearly daily basis is somehow a great enemy. That's a big problem. And it just made me sick. It really did. I was so angry at the fact that Amazon, Kripke, and the boys were portraying, frankly, me as this guy that went out and shot the convenience store owner. Oh, who, by the way, of course, was a minority, which was quite stereotypical and maybe a bit ist of you, Kripke, to make the convenience store clerk a minority immigrant. I mean, I don't know what to tell you about that, but that's a little ist to me that you'd stereotype the guy that way. But having this guy just go in and do that, and he's clearly, unquestionably representative of guys like me. It made me so angry that I almost turned the episode off. They were doing really well. I didn't mind that there was some agenda blended in with the story because it was a story and they were telling me a good story and they weren't hammering me with their point of view. I don't mind their point of view, if it's an underlying theme, if it's part of what's going on, okay, fine, right? I enjoyed. You can look back at my streams and all of my talks about The Boys season 2, about how much I have been enjoying this season. But today's episode just ripped me out of my enjoyment. And again, so much so that I almost couldn't finish watching it. I did power through it. I had to pause this episode a couple of times and go out and partake of my horrible habit of nicotine because I was just that not okay with how, we were represented by this episode. Now, to the episode's credit, about halfway through, it does sort of turn around and restore itself to being more like what we've seen from the boys through the rest of the season. Okay, the action picks back up, the story picks back up, and we're again seeing what we've been enjoying. But that the first part of the episode was so jarring that it was tough to finish it. I had some serious problems getting through the episode because it was just that challenging for me, because I know that Kripke very specifically, based on that video clip that we played, was really talking about me when he presented that. And that just, it doesn't sit well. The episode, the first half, after you get past that, it's really very slow. There's a lot of, almost filler content. It's, Lamplighter likes watching porn. The butcher hates his dad because his dad was an a-hole. And Mother's Milk is going to go around doing a couple of his things. But, that first half of the episode, after you get past the Stormfront army scene, is just slow as hell. And I don't know, they could have condensed it to half the length that it was. It was almost like they were trying to extend it to get to that roughly, 50 plus minute runtime that's been consistent for the season. The second half of the episode does pick up and get back to what I've enjoyed. And, the second half I was able to watch and enjoy it. And it was much better. You get Lamplighter and Huey break into the Vought Tower in order to rescue Starlight. And Lamplighter, this one really threw me for a loop because Lamplighter decided to commit suicide right there in Vought Tower in the conference hall of the Seven. And oddly, he burned himself to death, which is not something I would have thought could happen to him. If his power is the control of the fire, it surprised me that he could even be damaged by it. So that suicide just shook the hell out of me. It was a good scene. It was effective. I liked it. And then Huey cutting his hand off in order to use the handprint to get access to the security in the Vought Tower afterwards. That was really good. That was the boys to me, right? That's what we expect and want to see out of the boys. And so that was good. the close to this episode where Tulsi's hearings finally get going about all the bad things that Vought has been up to. Like, that was a very, very cool scene. And we get to see a return of the head popping that we saw very, very early in the season. And then we learned a couple episodes ago were from Cindy. You don't see where Cindy is at all during this scene. They're just about to roll out exposing Vought for the evil entity that it is, and bam, 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 bam. I mean, people are dying everywhere, including Soups. She popped the head of A-Train's replacement at that hearing as well. And it was just complete carnage. I mean, Tulsi's covered in gore. People are dying everywhere. Stormfront and Homelander are just standing looking around trying to figure out where Cindy is. Although Homelander doesn't know it's Cindy. I assume Stormfront clearly does, because of course Cindy was in her facility from the episode previously. But it's just this, and that scene again was the boys, and people everywhere just dying and getting exploded. Good scene. It's what we come to expect and what we like about the boys. And it gets you back into the story after being ripped out of it in the first part of the episode. So it does recover, but the first half is so bad that, again, I almost couldn't watch it. It was that jarring, and it ripped me out of my enjoyment of the show generally. And something that Hollywood keeps missing and they don't understand about their audience fundamentally is that directly and intentionally alienating and insulting people hurts your ability to sell your product. I am one of your consumers, Amazon. Eric Kripke, I am one of your consumers, and intentionally and directly and nastily insulting me really, really puts me off from continuing to consume your product. And you have got to understand that. And I don't think for a minute right now that they do. And that really seriously troubles me. They did so good up until episode 7, and then bam. I mean, the woke just rolled out. It made up for all the woke that they didn't put in the first 6 episodes. It was that in your face and nasty about it. So I'm going to give this episode 2 different ratings in my review. So the first half of this episode, up to right about the midway point, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. It was not good. It was insulting. It was nasty. It was very intentionally giving a gut punch to people like me. And that's not how you develop an audience. The second half of the episode, though, I will give the second half of the episode a solid 7.5 out of 10. And that's how different the two halves of this were. A 4 on one end and a 7.5 on the other. It was that jarring and really out of character for this season of the show. That's how bad the two differences were. Now, that being said, I have no friggin' clue where they are going with this thing for next week's season finale. I am completely unclear how this is all going to come to a final head. We've got a huge amount of tension built up to go into next week's season finale, and I'm absolutely clueless where they're going to go with this. Black Noir, I'm pretty sure he's alive, although Starlight did shove an Almond Joy down his throat, and apparently the guy's got a nut allergy. and she kicked his EpiPen away from him. I'm guessing he's more than resilient enough to survive that. I don't think that's a huge leap of logic, but it's definitely they did leave it as an open question. But I'm pretty sure he survives that. I mean, he's a soup after all. I don't think a nut allergy is going to take him down for good. And how they're going to build to whatever the conclusion is next week, we're definitely left on the edge of our seats wondering what's going on. I'm expecting, at least one or two of the lead soups to die, although, hard to say for sure what's going to happen. We'll find out soon enough. Captain Trek, hail, sir. Thank you for popping in. I hope you had an opportunity to watch this episode and catch up on the replay of the stream here. But I am looking forward to next week's episode, despite the fact that this week's episode 7 is by far my least favorite of the season. I'm very, very curious to see how they wrap it up. We do certainly know that there's going to be a season 3 of the show, and it'll be interesting to see how they end everything next week. Looking forward to that. If they don't repeat how this week's episode started, where it's just a slap in the face to people that you'd say are from the fandom menace, I can probably, end this season on a positive note, I hope, and with an overall positive review. But, episode 7 was just, it was not good for me. And I think a majority of the people who watch my channel are going to be in the same boat. So thank you all for joining. I really do appreciate it. Please remember to give a thumbs up to the video, share it with your friends on social media. And if you're not already a subscriber to the channel and you found it because you're looking for content about the boys, I do hope you'll consider clicking that subscribe button and see more future content that I'm putting out, because that's one of the best ways to help a new creator like myself on YouTube expand our reach and talk to more folks out there and just be successful against the larger corporations like your Amazons, your CBSs, your Disneys, guys like that, because those larger creators really do get favored in the YouTube algorithm. Again, thank you so much for your time today, and we'll talk to you soon. Hopefully I'll catch you on my Howling About Entertainment stream tomorrow afternoon.